Today I'm going to show you how I ink and how I do my watercolour. You might pick up some hints from this. I am the snake artist and my mission in life is to get people to appreciate art and wildlife. This video is a follow-on from my how to draw a piranha video. You'll find that in the description below in this video. And you might, if you've done that, cool, you can see how it ended up. If not, you might just pick up some hints anyway on how to draw piranhas or how to use watercolour, how to use ink, whatever you're interested in there. This video might just have it for you. So I'm starting off the inking process with a liner brush. What a liner brush is, it's a brush which has extra long bristles, and so you sort of drag the brush around, gives a sort of flowing line. This is a very fine one, so I can get a lot of detail with it, but it's really good for doing these swishy lines. Even though I've sped this up in real time, I tend to do the swish lines at a fairly fast pace to keep the smoothness happening. If I am too slow and too careful, then the line looks a little bit apprehensive. It doesn't look as fast or as smooth flowing as it should. So most of this video is sped up just to save some time, because I want to get down to the nitty-gritty of how to ink rather than give you guys a big long boring video. If you've come here to learn a little bit more about art to improve your art skills, or if you just love wildlife and nature, hey, leave a comment below and let me know about it. So now I've moved in with the nib. The nib gives a little bit more controlled fine lines, and for this I'm building up a texture and a tone. When you look at how artists do this, they'll do it in different ways, and it is interesting to see the different signatures that an artist has. One of the artists I really love is Joe Corbett, and his artwork looks really rough and swishy because of the lovely brush strokes. Then you got other artists in which is very controlled. If you look at Virgil Finlay's work, there's lots of very controlled methods of using tone, and yet he does a lot of experimentation with different ways of achieving tone. So whether it's rough and fast or whether it's more controlled and more methodical, either way works if you've got the values right, or if you've got the lights and tones. When we're talking black and white, we're talking tone. So you get a good tonal range happening, get areas which are white, you get areas which are black, you get all these different tones in between, and you're doing well. One of the great things about doing wildlife art is it helps with your observation. It helps you identify stuff. So if you're here because you like wildlife and you're checking out this video for that, consider that if you used to learn a little bit of art, just enough to colour in or take some observation notes visually, it helps you identify things. I'll give you an example. Once I drew an eastern spinebill. It's not a very well known bird around the world, but amongst the bird nerds in Tasmania, it certainly is. Now, because of the shape of the bill, because of the colours, the beautiful colours it's got, every time I see one, even from a distance, I identify it straight away. It's an eastern spinebill. I go, whoa, there it is, I know it so well because I spent a few hours drawing it. So each time you do a drawing of an animal, you're spending time with that, so you identify it straight away. In this case, this red-bellied piranha here is something that I will notice. As soon as I see one in an aquarium or in real life, I'll be able to identify it straight away because I've spent a few hours on this. Both the form, the shape of it, and then the colour. So my goal is to encourage everybody to have a go at creating art. Even if you can only do stick figures, try and just push yourself a little bit further, because you can have a notebook, and if you love nature and you see something worth taking notes about, you can do some rough little scribbles. That's all they have to be. You don't have to show anybody. It can just be in your personal journal, and what that does is it helps you do an observation on an animal. Even if it is just a quick, rough, simple drawing of an observation, it helps you learn about wildlife. You might think your drawing's not very good, but it still is a great way of teaching yourself, if not about art, certainly about wildlife. You can see here the watercolour. What I do is I lay colours down, I add lots of water. A lot of the time with watercolour, you're just dipping the brush in water and you're running that across the illustration. And so it's kind of like blending on the job. You can always add more water to soften areas, which is what I like about it. And then you really load the brush up with pigment to make more colours sort of pop out and make those colours brighter. If you go too far with the colour, you add water and it softens the colour. Some people don't like watercolour because they don't like the lack of control, but if you use it carefully, you have got a lot of control. And although it tends to do its own thing a bit, you can sort of control it a bit. What I often do is I'll get the paint, I'll pop it down very, very wet, and if I don't like it too much, I'll rinse the brush out, I'll squeeze the bristles of the brush between my fingers and then put it back on and mop up some of the colour. And so you're pushing around and manipulating colour till it's where you want it to be. And so after a while, instead of not having much control, you do have lots of control. The smaller brushes you use, the more control you've got. When I was in my early teens, I did a watercolour course which was very, very helpful, and in that they said that you always just leave white bits. Years and years later, after probably about 30 years of using watercolour like that, speaking to another wildlife illustrator, they say you just put some gouache on the white bits, and they said that the top illustrators use gouache. I thought, oh, that's cheating. But then I sort of thought, at the end of the day, you've done this image by yourself. How is it cheating? So rather than being a purist when it comes to watercolour, I love to slap a bit of gouache on now for the highlights. When it comes down to illustration, you use whatever you have to get that image done. And so that was me showing you some of my inking and watercolour techniques. If you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss a video. I'll see you in the next one.